Thanks for tuning into the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with TV show news. Now, I had the opportunity last week to start watching a show on Showtime called The Shy. Now, a lot of people have told me about this show. They've raved about this show, but as always, I'm kind of hard headed when it comes to shows. I get to them when I get to them. But I kind of regret watching this show so late. But luckily, the show is still occurring, and they just got renewed for a new season for sometime next year, I believe. So I got to get caught up. Right now, I'm towards the end of season three, but I'm going to do my first impressions of season one and how um, I was impressed and thoroughly impressed and compelled from this season one. And I know I'm late on watching this show, so it's not really necessarily a review. It's just an impressions because this show came out 7 years ago, back in 2018. So back then, I probably was still watching just Power back then. So I was stuck in that Power universe back then. But now watching this Shy show, there's a lot of great things from this show, a lot of great writing, a lot of great acting. I like the music. I'm not a fan of the theme song, but everything else seems to be in place. And there's a lot of great appearances, especially from Chicago artists like Common and just other great Chicago, notable, well, I won't say alumni, but former citizens or people from Chicago. So I was impressed about that. And of course, Lena Waithe's always done great projects. I'm a huge fan of the Queen of Slim movie. It's one of those movies, those telltale movies that we need more stories of those, but without the tragic ending, of course. But I was thoroughly impressed with the season one of The Shy and just The Shy as a whole, just because it's a very good feel good story for the most part, and it talks about things in the inner city that most people don't consider, and the average viewer or people that don't come from that world of the inner city wouldn't understand, but then they would be able to be empathetic towards it because she's telling these unique stories that we all know or we all heard of. So, but I was impressed by the storyline and how the unalive of one teenager affected the whole city and it trickled down to everyone else because a lot of people don't think about those dynamics when a crime has occurred or there's tragic loss. So she did a great job of telling that story. And then secondly, I saw a lot of comparisons of The Shy to The Wire. Now, The Wire is my favorite TV show, so I always try to find a little piece of The Wire in every show, but this show definitely had it. They incorporated the street life. So, the street players. They had the kids, just like on season four and pretty much season five of The Wire. They had law enforcement, just like every season of The Wire had. They had the politics, which um, they had the politician. Well, it's later on, but then they showed the politicians. They also had uh, the legal system involved as well. So you got all of those pieces, and then you had the positive influences and the stories that create the balance, similar to what the older guy was going through with his story after losing, his stepson and things like that. So you had all these different stories, and Ronnie is his name. And Ronnie's character is similar to Cuddy's from The Wire because he had one of those stories where he was kind of left off into society without any resources. Uh, and then he ended up doing bad things. But then, of course, later on in the other seasons, he eventually gets his life together. But it shows you how sometimes in society, you're just released into society after, you know, in Ronnie's case, he was in the military and he was let out without any resources. And he had a lot of PTSD and things like that. And these things never got addressed. So that was a similarity with Ronnie and kind of Cuddy from the Wire. Even Franklin. Franklin was in college, couldn't afford it, got out, and he had to eventually dabble in the street life. And we see that where that turned out for Franklin. But it showed you these characters or how society or art imitates life when you don't have the resources, but you're just put out there. I loved Jacob Lattimore's character, Emmett. I didn't know he was such a great actor. I've seen him in smaller roles and like Ride Along and stuff like that, but I never seen him in a film where he's sort of the main character in this show, even though it's kind of spread evenly amongst everyone. But he's sort of the main character. He's probably the most ambitious character, I should say. from all of the stuff he has to go through. Of course, he's a young father. He dropped out of high school. He's in inner city Chicago. He has multiple children by multiple women, and he's just trying to make it on the streets in Chicago. And it's a very inspiring story to see his growth and maturation and how he continues to keep trying, because that's most we can ask you to do is just keep trying. And he definitely does that. And you'll see his progression throughout the seasons, of course. And then Papa and Meldritch are probably my favorite characters. Of course, Papa is the kid that's friends, and the kid story that they have. He's very funny because he's pretty much like his father. He's very religious and he's very thought provoking, and he thinks above his years and always being the voice of reasoning. But it's very hilarious when you hear him talk about different things. And his character is probably the funniest character on the show. But of course, Ronnie has the best storyline coming up from out of the military and then dealing with addiction and just trying to find balance in his life and trying to find his reasoning for doing it all, because they show the story of him trying to become a cop and then him getting that letter, not making it, and then he just drowns his sorrows in the bottle, which you see a lot in season one and seasons going forward. When things don't go his way, he resorts um, to alcoholism, unfortunately. But it'll be interesting to see his story, because his story is very similar to Bubbles, minus the law enforcement influence, but his story is very similar because they battle with addiction, but they know they're wrong, but they're trying to fix it. So they have this active demon that they're trying to fight, and we get to see a first look at the addiction and how they're trying to deal with it and how they're trying to cope and find other measures to stay afloat. And then I like Brandon's character as well, who's played by Jason Mitchell, and unfortunately, they killed his character off in later seasons. But Brandon is definitely a positive character that, despite the things that happened to him, he did try to not to resort to violence, with the exception of one incident. But for the most part, he's just trying to become a chef, trying to make money and get his own restaurant, and then do things that way. But of course, dealing with the street life, lack of resources, he stumbles along the way until later seasons, and he find other issues. Well, he found money, but it comes with issues and comes with a price, which he didn't realize. But money always comes with a price. And then he's also struggling with his relationship with his mom, which I like. Well, I don't like, but the character I like. She's from The Wire as well. She was Kima Greggs on The Wire, but it's Sonia Son. She's a good character as well. Um, but it's a great show, and I'm almost done with season 3, so I'll give more updates and my impressions from seasons going forward. But as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.